There are a lot of engines here slated for teardown videos. Some of them I've been kind of avoiding for some time. I do have some strategery as far as what engines I tear down when. Usually if I have a midweek video, I pick an easier teardown because I just don't have the time. But no midweek video this week, so let's do a tough one. At least I think it's going to be tough. An Audi V10, a BXA, that's the engine code for this. It's a 5.2 liter dual overhead cam V10 from a 2007 Audi S6. These engines make 435 horsepower and 398 foot-pounds of torque. Now, a lot of people say that these are like a Lamborghini V10, and there are some similarities to those engines, but I think this is more like the 4.2 liter V8. It's just a 10-cylinder version. This particular core came from another local yard. They have no idea if it ran or not. I don't even know if the car was wrecked. They sold the intake manifold off of it and then sold this to me for almost nothing. So I don't really have a lot to lose here if everything's bombed out. Hopefully it gets some good parts, and hopefully it comes apart pretty easy. The 4.2 liter Audi V8 and this 5.2 liter V10 both have the timing chain on the flywheel side of the engine. There's a lot of European engines that are like this, and that makes my job a little more difficult because I can't easily put this engine on a stand. If I want to take the chains off, which I'm going to have to do to get the heads off, I can't mount a stand to the flywheel side, and the front of the engine doesn't really have anything to bolt a stand to. I'm sure there's a way to do this. This is the very first one I've ever had. This is the very first 4.2 or 5.2 I've ever had in the shop. So we're just going to tear it down on the crate, and then if we get down to a short block, maybe we'll tear it down on a table. I know this core looks pretty rough. It was pretty much cut out of a car. A lot of yards, when they have a bad engine, they don't go through all the effort and time it takes to pull one nice. So if there's some cut wires and cut hoses and that kind of thing, that's pretty normal for a core engine. So now we're going to start to pull the coils to get the plugs out. Oh. Okay, well, that's a little rusty. Well, that one's nice. I suppose one's not bad. So there is a little bit of water in here. So when we finally get these heads off, we'll find some water in there as well. That is not appropriate. I got through 9 spark plugs on this engine before I saw a problem. And I kind of feared that this engine would be a good engine that just was set outside with no intake on it and got a bunch of water in it and rusted up. That would be sad. But number 10 does not disappoint. Lots of malice in that combustion palace. I mean, it is perfectly flat. This is going to be fun. Now keep in mind, this is a direct injected engine and it's set for a while with the intake off. But check out how much carbon. That's a ton. These do not have port injection, just direct injection. And some leaves. This engine is quite a mess. Lots of cut hoses and wires. And it's also sitting on a skid since I can't put it on an engine stand. So I think what I'm going to do, I guess I could put it on a stand, but I think what I'm going to do is lower one of my tables down and work on it on the table, and we'll just have to make do with what we've got. This engine has quite a few not so conventional things, at least compared to the other engines we've torn down. But I'm going to start with the coolant pipes and the cooling system. We're going to get this off of here. It has a water-cooled alternator. We'll get that off, and then we'll get the exhaust manifolds off. There's a lot of torques to take out, so let's get started. Looks like I might have to take the dipstick tube out next. So early. Come on, play nice. Doesn't help that it's bent.
Will you let go?
Maybe we could just work around it right now. That's what we're going to do. We're just going to work around it, pretend that it's not there. This should just pop right off, but it just popped right off. Okay, that's just a real simple thing that's still attached.
Come on.
We have one more hose that goes to the oil cooler. I'm sure that's a fun job in the car. You know what? We're just gonna snip this because it's a rubber hose, and it shouldn't be reused anyway. All right, now that this very simple coolant routing is off, there's some interesting things. It has a cap here and a cap here, but this one is a clamped-on piece of rubber, and this is a piece of plastic with a clip on it that's likely O-ringed. It's an interesting choice. Very interesting. Now we have very easy access to the exhaust manifolds. Oh, it's going to be like that. Still won't come out. That was pretty stuck in there. Oh, we go again. Oh, we're all right. Well, they're all out. It doesn't want to come off. There we go. Well, there's one side off. I've sprayed this side with some penetrator to hopefully avoid the situation I had with the other side. That was definitely the play. This is the first peculiar thing I noticed when this engine came in. Here's the AC compressor, and it's driven by the shaft. I'm driven by a gear that's probably driven by the timing chain. Not quite sure how that's going to come apart. And then the power steering pump, same deal. This is very similar to an 80 series Land Cruiser 1FZ. Power steering pump's driven off of the timing chain. Next, let's get the alternator off. Oh, still have a coolant hose. These are water-cooled alternators. All right, I'm going to cut this hose. I know some of you guys are saying, I could use that. No, you can't, because I'm cutting it. This alternator is quite the unit. Oh, it's still got coolant in it. It spins okay. No idea if it charges. No idea if it's good. I'll probably end up coring it out because I don't know that it's going to be worth trying to sell. Looks like some bolts have been taken out of it. Yeah. I think that's going to end up in the core bin. Now with the alternator gone, it reveals the oil cooler. There's the alternator bracket. I could get that off. We're going to kind of leave this until we get a little further along. Let's get to the other side and see if we can get the water pump off and then maybe the AC compressor. This looks really fun to do in the car. I think I can say that about everything on this engine. I'm sure most everything is an engine out, which... Watch this thing puke coolant all over the floor. Watch me not do anything about it. Oh, maybe not. Oh yeah, it's full of coolant. Totally full of coolant. All right, well, we're going to pause on that. We'll get some other stuff taken off a little higher up on the engine. Let's get the oil filter out and take a look at that. Let's pull these flaps apart. And there's definitely some junk in there, but it doesn't look like metal. Yeah, there's a couple pieces of metal in there. It's not totally coated with it. Now we'll move on to the upper timing covers. Well, it certainly is pretty varnished in here. Doesn't look like an engine that was really well maintained, or maybe it's just got a lot of... There's a pile of metal fragments here. And they're chunky, like not bearing. We're going to just set those down there. That's the only sign of anything awry in here. All of the guides that I can see look okay. The bridge guide looks good. I don't see anything alarming other than just a small pile of metal chunks right here. That's it. Let's move on to the other side. This side looks about the same, maybe a little bit better because the chunks of metal pile, that pile is smaller. So I think this side is just a little bit better. Before we get any further, I'm going to spend a minute and remove all of these lines. They're in the way. That was some work. Now we'll start removing the valve cover. Nope, we're just going to take this out the right way. Oh, come on. Just needs a little convincing. Whatever it was, it's a T30 now. Ooh, it's dark in there. Well, it is horrendously dirty. So much varnish. I definitely don't think this thing was well taken care of. But I don't see anything overly wrong. There's not a pile of metal anywhere. I don't see any broken valve train components. This side looks just dirty. Let's move over to the other side. I don't really see anything broken in the... Uh-oh. That's not good. Well, there's a rocker kicked sideways. Never a good sign. I don't really see a bunch of metal in here. It's just a slightly misaligned rocker. So here's what they're supposed to look like. And you can see that that one, slightly unhappy. That was also the same cylinder that had the smashed plug. So I'm not surprised. Next, I'm going to remove the oil filter housing. I'm going to take just a minute and level this engine. I'm going to lift this side of it and slide a 2x4 underneath it so I can pull the flywheel off, because right now it's sitting on the flywheel or flex plate. And then maybe we can pull timing cover. I don't know if that's the next thing that needs to be done. Maybe we have to take the heads off. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just pulling bolts off till parts fall off. So I have lots of ideas in my life, and not all of them are good. This might be one of those. Or maybe I'm just a genius and I don't even know it. like a glove. Now that the engine is sitting level, I'm going to go ahead and remove the flex plate. If I can. Well, the good news is the engine moves. The bad news is I got 2 bolts out and the impact won't touch the others, and I definitely don't want to strip these. Wow. The engine turns over just fine. Uh-oh. Let's try this with a shorter socket here. Much better. Full disclaimer here, this might not work. I might not be able to get this cover off with the heads in place, but I really wanted to see what the timing system looked like complete. So it looks like we've got 3 Torx bolts or T30s that hold the head to the timing cover. We'll have to get those out. Then there's some triple squares of various sizes and then more T30s on this cover. So we're just going to start zipping some bolts out and see how far we can get. Now, I don't think this is going to work, but it might, and if it does, that's great. Oh, we're leaking. This side's loose. This side, on the other hand, tight. Oh, would you look at that? Oh, would you look at that? What is going on in there? That is just like the 4.2. Well, let's kind of poke around and see if we can see anything. Oh, there's some metal. Oh, no. That doesn't go there. What else is down here? Why is this so loose? Oh, no. That doesn't go there. What has occurred here? I can see that this tensioner is all the way out. There's a pin missing. What has happened into this poor engine? Did it shear this off? Oh, actually, it looks like it unthreaded. Does this come out? Ah. So that bolt, that is supposed to go there. And I don't know how that attaches anymore. It looks like it must have chucked a... I don't know what happened. But you're not supposed to... That's not supposed to happen. Oh, man, there's a bunch of broken stuff down here. Oh, there's all kinds of nuggets. Oh, it's a soup of them. We'll get there. So that's pretty bad. I don't even know how this is supposed to come apart. I know it's not supposed to do what it did. There's another good size piece. I don't even know what that is. Block? That might be block. Oh, I had no idea this was blown up this bad. Oh, that's bad. You're not supposed to have that. There's just chunks of stuff in there. We'll get to that. So let's take a look at this. So the threads are still intact, but if you look way in there, I can't tell if something is sheared. And here's the back of that gear. So I don't know if there's a piece missing or what happened, but this is pretty wrecked in here. If you look way back there, you can kind of see it. Chunkies in there. And the intermix is probably just from the engine sitting outside. I don't think that's from like blown head gasket or anything. But all over the place, you'll see little chunks of metal. There's the gear drive for the power steering pump and the AC compressor. That's pretty neat. And a little bit of shrapnel on the timing cover, but nothing like what's inside the engine. Next thing I'm going to do is remove the cam gears.
Oh.
Just shooting pieces of plastic out. It's fine. The shock from the impact split some of the guides apart. No great loss. Now I suppose it's time to remove this upper cam plate. This doesn't really have separate cam caps. It just has this top plate. I'm sure there's an actual word for it. Yeah, I didn't think I'd get that lucky. Maybe. Well, that was violent. That was explosive. I'm going to leave some bolts in it on the other side before I do that. I'm going to assume that explosion was just the pressure of the valve springs on the cams. Did not expect that. Now, I don't see anything too terrible in the cam journals on the head. It doesn't look like any debris went through here, or if it was starved of oil. I can't really tell from this vantage point. But let's go look at the cams, and let's go look at the cam plate. So here's the cam plate, and the same thing here. There's really not a whole lot of wear. There is a little bit. Yeah, I guess as you get further away from the timing chain, the wear increases just a bit. We've definitely seen worse on this channel. I just wouldn't call that good. And the cams are about what you'd expect. Now this odd lobe here, that's for the high pressure fuel pump. These are really skinny cam lobes. It's less friction, lighter. I'm sure they had their reasons. Before I go any further, I need to get these fuel lines removed from the rails. Now, I know what they want you to do, and that is pull the rails so that you have easy access to these T30s here. We're not going to do that because in my experience, especially on a carboned up engine like this, getting the injectors out of the head is quite a challenge. I prefer to get the heads off, run them through the parts washer, kind of clean them up, get them warm, and the injectors will come out a lot easier. So we're going to have to find a way to get these bolts out without doing that. Now this one doesn't look too terrible. I think I can kind of... Yes, so that one wasn't too bad. But this one, that's going to be some work. Now this rail looks a little bent, so we're just going to kind of massage it a little bit out of the way. Just like that. Ah, perfect. Oh, Loctited. That bolt's just going to come out with the head. Before I get the head bolts out, I'm going to remove the solenoid just so it doesn't impede the breaker bar. Also wanted to check to see if there's any metal on it, and I don't see any. Now, let's see how these head bolts treat me. I really don't think I missed anything. I looked it over once more, and I still don't think I missed anything. It still doesn't want to come off that easily. Oh, we got another line, another fuel line on it I missed. So yes, I missed something. Let's just give it a little prying action, you know. Oh yeah. Just took a little, not even a lot. Well, it definitely had some water in it.
Oh no! Hey, that's not right.
That one's okay, that one's okay. That one's swimming. That one's broken. I don't think this is one of those variable compression engines, but that one probably doesn't have any. I don't know that we've ever seen a piston broken in half so cleanly on this channel, but there's a first for everything. The rest of these look like they've had water sitting in them, but not like this one. Now we're going to do the test that I came up with, super scientific test that tests the integrity of the connecting rod. Good. Also good. 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 I can't tell. It's something is ungood in here. The rod might be okay, but that'll be a fun one to get apart. Surprisingly, the head isn't really that bad. There's a little bit of metal debris, but I expected to find bent valves, and I don't see any. I don't really see any head damage on this side. Now it's time for the bad side. Before I crack any of these bolts loose, we're going to remove these solenoids just to get them out of the way. All right, we want to avoid what happened last time. See? Got you this time. That was a lot less violent. The journals really aren't too bad. I don't really see anything terrible on this side, but I do believe this is going to be the bad side, just judging from the spark plugs. And the cam plate shows about the same amount of wear as the other side. The cams look pretty similar as well. Nothing standing out. I even checked that lobe for damage that had that misaligned rocker, and I didn't see anything. Now for the other side head bolts. Hopefully this one comes off as easily as the other. Oh, you double crosser harness. This is, oh, it's a good thing I have a T30 here. I can just, hold it. Fuel line was getting me. All right, now we can pull this head off. No! We have another connector. Cool, thank you. Well, let's go from good to bad. So this is this the front or the rear? But this is the best cylinder. Looks pretty nice. I did clean some water out of these. And as you get further towards the front, they begin to look a little less good. And then you get here, and it's it's just gone. Everything is just gone. There's no rod. There's no wrist pin. There's no way this broke a wrist pin. That would be a first. But it's so broken. And then, is that a journal on the crank for the other side? But how does it look so nice? All of these questions. And if you look way down there, you can see there's some stuff down there. We'll get to it. And here's the head. Eee. And then there's the obviously terrible one. Lots of impact marks. And then look at this. That was stuck in there. Now that could have been from me fighting that head. But let's see if I can even get this head gasket off. I don't even know if I can. Oh yeah, I can. We're just gonna... Yeah, that's pretty torn up. Definitely smashed the valves, and that valve there was probably the one that had the misaligned rocker. Pretty bad. Now I'm going to start pulling bolts out of the timing components, see what comes off first. Oh, that looks nice and simple. Oh, that's pretty neat. I don't know how that works, but I mean, I know how it works. I don't know how that comes apart yet. Yeah, let's get these off, and we'll get this main chain out of the way. That one actually looks pretty good. Oh, that's kind of wedged in there. Yeah. Oh, no, it's got a little bit of wear on the end here. Gotta be careful with that one. Everything looks pretty decent. Oh, this one, oh, there we go. Oil pressure fed, a bunch of junk behind it. I can't tell if that's bearing or what. I can't get that out, whatever this is. Feels like there's stuff in the way. It's just going to live there for right now. Well, I think this is a balance shaft, and the reason it won't come out is because if you look back in there, this little piston nugget's holding this thing in place. So maybe it's worse than it looks like from the outside. Let's see if this will come apart. Oh, well, that's the drive for the power steering pump. Well, I don't really know what to do from here before we, ooh, what is this? Oh, look at that. Part of a rod. Now I'm going to work on this side. We're going to get this bracket off. All right, I'm going to cut some more hoses. Sorry for you guys that wanted these. Oh. Well, that was rather uneventful. I guess it's time to make a mess. Ah, it wasn't too bad. Since I'm here, I'm going to pull the crank pulley. Now, I don't know if this is going to come off easy, but I can hope. Oh, yeah. Next, I'm going to focus on this AC compressor. I'm actually going to take these Allen-headed bolts out. I think that's how this is going to come apart. I could be wrong. Huh. Well, that was Pretty simple right there. Oh, dipstick. It's the dipstick for sure. Oh, I knew it was going to come to this. Success. And one removed AC compressor. Now we'll get, looks like a thermostat housing, and it's probably a water pump too. Get this out of the way. And we're going to have to cut another hose. I know, guys, I could sell these. Wow, that is wild. Yep. So, I wonder what drives this. I'm sure when we pull the short block apart, we'll find out. Now let's try this power steering pump. Well, I spent a little bit of time and I looked at the front or back, whatever you want to call this side of the engine, and I think I can get this on a stand now. Now that all the stuff's gone, I'm going to remove this cap here first to make sure I'm not missing anything. I don't want to have to take this back off of the stand, but I think I can use these 4 bolt holes and mount this to a stand. What's behind here? That was good. Oh, it's the back side of the balance shaft. Oh, I think we can get it out now. Well, hopefully this comes out pretty easily. Oh, man. Wow. That thing got in a fight. This balance shaft is really beat up on this end. And now after looking at this, I think what happened is when this engine blew up, or while it was in the process of blowing up, shrapnel from the rod or the piston got in the way of this while it was turning, and that's what ripped the gear off the end of it, pulled the threads out, snapped it off. I still haven't found those parts. Ta-da! It's on a stand. Now, I'm glad I didn't put it on a stand earlier. The way it bolts up, I wouldn't want it to be full weight, but with just a short block, I think we'll be okay. So now I'm going to remove the oil pan. I'm not going to flip it over because it looks like it's full of junk, and I don't want that all over the place inside the engine. It'll make taking it apart a lot harder. So we're going to get the lower pan off. We'll see what that looks like, and then we'll work our way up. Let's get some of these hoses and pipes out of the way. Huh. Well, there's a lot of stuff in there. This is what I like to call a complete kit. Of course, our wrist pin, virtually unscathed, although it does have some pretty significant marks on the outside. It's pretty impressive. And we also have, looks like part of a windage tray or block. Don't forget a reusable rod bolt. That's a little not okay. And then you have, of course, you got your Sur clips. There's 1 and 2. And no, that's more block. No, that's more block. Also block. That could be piston. Probably block. Block. Oh, here's the piston's over on this side. So there's piston. There's part of an oil ring here. Just 1. We've got part of a compression ring. Oh, you can't forget. Is that the bushing that goes to the top of the rod, or is that a rod bearing? Either way, it's I don't think it's any good anymore. This is just you know, I'm just gonna pour this out. Just let's just pour all of this out. And then there's this like gooey stuff. Oh, rings, more rings. So, of course, we pulled sections of rod out when we had the timing cover off at first. This is those small parts. I bet you there's more that I can fish out of this. Let's go try. My next step is to turn this engine over, but before I do that, I'm going to try to get some of these larger sections closer. Oh, here we go. Ah, there's part of a piston. There's one nugget. There's another nugget. Oh man, there's so much more in here. I'm just gonna have to flip this thing over. Okay, here goes everything probably. This is probably gonna make a giant mess. I don't really think there's gonna be any fluid in this thing. Just the water. What is happening? Oh boy. So this is what the pickup looks like. It's got some not so good stuff hanging out on it. And then we've got, oh look, a elongated rod cap. There's a bunch of little chunks of stuff, some in the pickup, but we're likely, oh look at that, an exit wound. That's the only exit wound I found on this engine so far. I don't see any other, oh wait, there's another one right there. It's pretty impressive how bad the carnage has been, and the outside of the engine doesn't look that affected. Now I'm going to take a moment and remove the oil pickup, this pipe here, and maybe we'll get to the oil pump. So the pickup is absolutely full of, it doesn't even look like bearing material, it's just, it's gravel, it's block gravel. And there's so much of it in this area. Let's see if we can save this here. There's also some black stuff in here. I don't really know what the black stuff is yet. Let's go add this to the other pile. Let's just start zipping some bolts out. Okay, well it's loose. I don't know if that helps me though. All right, well looks like a drive shaft. I guess that's for the water pump. It's run off of the oil pump. Seems great. Oh, there's all kinds of other stuff down in here. There's the oil pump. Just pooped on me. It's fine. So hiding in here, we have, is that a rod bearing or is that a bushing? That looks like a bushing that goes at the top of a rod, like a wrist pin bushing. But it decided that that was the best place for it. Of course, more shrapnel, there's some bigger pieces, and I think there's a rod hanging out between the windage tray and the upper oil pan. Could be wrong. Now I'm going to start zipping bolts out so we can get this upper pan off. Blue. Oh, it literally just chucked this rod out. All right. Oh, well, as you could expect, it's pretty bad. It just deleted the windage tray and a complete rod and piston, and I bet that there's significant damage to the rod and the adjacent cylinder and the block. Just self-clearancing. That's the best way to describe this. I mean, this was so violent that it actually broke this. That is the oil pump drive. It's not supposed to come off like that, but it did. And then more pieces of piston. This was a high RPM, high load failure. There's no way this just happens at idle. Now let's remove the rest of this windage tray. There's damage in every single one. Yep, because there's a piece. I don't know that we're going to get anything that survived out of this engine. Wow. Don't forget this. Part of the crown. Everywhere I look, there's just piston nuggets. Oh no. There's the other rod cap bolt. It's mutilated. All right, before we start taking rods and pistons out, I'm actually going to remove the bed plate, which is the bottom half of the block. I think it'll be a lot easier considering the amount of damage to this engine. I can't really turn it over, or I don't have an easy way to do that. So without this, it'll be significantly easier. Kind of let that dangle there. It's laughing at me. Yeah, that's not going to work. It was an idea. I didn't say it was a good one. A sneaky one. The damage is so much worse without that bed plate on here. There's chunks of piston all throughout this engine, and there's marks from contact on pretty much every rod. We still have one question. Can I turn the crank over? I bet I can. Let's see what happens here. Yeah, it moves enough for me to get everything out. That's all I really need. I just need to be able to have access to all of the rod cap bolts. So we're going to start with what we can get to. I don't even know what side's the front of the engine. It doesn't matter. It's all messy now. So we'll start getting these rods and pistons out, and then we can at least get the caps off, and then I can pull the crank up, and then I can push the rods and pistons through. Worst case. Let's crack some rod caps loose. Nope, I can't get that one out yet. So let's rotate it. Need to turn it over the other direction. Don't worry, it's nothing worse than's already happened. There, now I can get to the last two. Well, I decided to save the best for last. I can't believe this still goes up and down in the bore. It's insane to me. That rod is completely bent, probably from fighting with its other rod, its adjacent rod, and man, hopefully I can get this out of the block. Oh no, it came apart in my hand. Now there's nothing left but to pull the crank. Let's start at the good side of this engine. These bearing shells are small, but they're not really that badly worn. Looks like some debris might have run through a few of them, but this thing ran for a while as it blew up. I really don't think this was a situation where it was starved of oil or had dirty oil or a clogged passage, because we would see signs of that discolored rods. And then you get to this. Now I did fish out what I think is a rod bearing here, and it is absolutely destroyed, but that's from the rod disintegrating, the piston coming apart. And then here's that front set, or rear, whatever side you want to call it. That's obviously the worst. And every single piston is dinged up. There's piston material jammed up inside from the one that blew up. All the rods have marks on them. I can't sell these, not at all. I mean, unless you wanted a desk ornament, I suppose. And they get significantly worse as you get towards the front. The dents get more numerous. And then they really start to get bad. Look at the amount of damage there. The skirts are pretty tore up too. That's pretty awesome, but this is the coolest part. So this was the cracked piston that we saw when we pulled the head, and it literally was held together by the cylinder and the rings. And it's kind of held together by an oil control ring, but not really. You can see that broke clean in two. Of course, perfect condition wrist pin. Look at that, ready to go right back into a rebuilt engine. And then that rod. That is a pretty good sign of what has happened here, at least what I think happened. And then when you get to here, I don't know, I have to dig those rod bolts up, but the rod bolts from this cylinder are just destroyed. And the crank has just tons of hammer marks that I didn't put in it, maybe a few that I did, but the journals all look pretty decent, except for where they made contact with flying debris. We didn't see any torn up bearings, no damage there. So I don't think this was oil related. Here's the bed plate. You can see there's a giant hole taken out of this one. And on that side. But the bearings look okay. Here's the block. And you can see there's lots of tiny impact marks from all of that piston material that was floating around while this thing was running. And then you get to the really bad stuff. The reason that balance shaft wouldn't come out, it actually broke the block above the balance shaft. There's so much material flying around in here that it cracked the block right there. It is pretty impressive. I'm more impressed that it contained this damage. It didn't throw a rod through the outside. I mean, there were a couple out dents in the oil pan, but this is really impressive that it contained this. This was not a small situation. Oh no, we're going to take the oil pump apart. You guys thought I forgot? That is, if we can get it apart. Oh, it's coming apart. There's the oil pump rotors. Yeah, there's a little bit of debris in there, but it's not really that bad. That one apparently doesn't come out. I bet there's more stuff I have to pull off. I'm not going to do it, but it really doesn't look that bad in here. It doesn't seem that much of the debris made it through that screen. When I get engines into Teardown on this channel, the first few minutes, the first few steps, they're always a little nerve-wracking. These engines come from all over the place. Other shops, from salvage yards, from core suppliers. Some of them are cores from my customers. And these engines can be condemned for a variety of reasons. Some of these cars go to other salvage yards without keys. I get them in all the time without keys. I have a programmer and I do my best to get everything running. But these high volume yards, they don't go through all the work it takes to get some of these cars running. They don't buy a burned up Mazda Speed Miata and spend hours and hours putting it back together so they can verify the engine is good. There's only one person I know that would do that. Anyway, this car obviously wasn't run, and the guy I bought this engine from, the yard I bought this engine from, just said he thought it was bad. He didn't run it, came in with no key, I don't know miles, so it was a question mark. But as I started to pull the plugs and I got to that last plug where the end was smashed, what a relief that was. The last thing I want to do on this channel is tear down some perfectly good, rare, hard to find engine that's worth a ton of money. These engines are very expensive. This one, perfectly good, can describe no part of it. It is completely bombed out. Every single part of this engine has damage. It might have maybe one head, maybe. That might be the extent of it. I don't know what really caused this engine to fail. The bearings didn't really show any signs of oil starvation. The cam caps weren't really that worn. We didn't see any fragments of bearing in the pan other than smashed bearing. Now, this could have sucked in water. However, it sat outside in the rain for some time, and I don't know where that water came from. It had no intake manifold on it, so it's hard to say. Either way, I got some pretty cool parts for the desk. If you want to buy those parts, that's about the best use for the stuff that came out of this engine. Or if you want to buy anything else off of the engines I've torn down in the past, I'm going to leave our email in the video description. You can also go to importapart.com and peruse everything we have in stock. Right now, for the next few days, we have a Black Friday, Cyber Monday sale, but that will end soon, and I know this video will go on for quite some time. If you'd like to check out our whole part outs, I've been posting those in our blog as well. If you don't see what you're looking for on our website, you can always send us a part request. It sends us an email with exactly what it is you're looking for. I really hope you enjoyed this teardown. As always, I love all the comments, all the feedback, and even the criticism. I love it all, and I'll catch you on the next one.